There are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart. You wake up one morning and nothing feels familiar. The job is gone. The doctor gives you news you never wanted to hear. Someone you trusted walks away, and suddenly the path you were walking so confidently disappears beneath your feet. You find yourself in a place you never planned to be, facing battles you never thought you'd have to fight, and the question rises in your heart, loud and painful: how do I stay positive when everything around me feels so negative? If you've ever felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on your chest, if you've ever stared at the ceiling in the middle of the night with more questions than answers, then you are not alone. We all face seasons when life is just hard. But the way we respond in those moments can shape everything that follows. Today, we're going to talk about what it really means to hold on to light in the middle of darkness. Not with shallow smiles or fake optimism, but with a deep, unshakable strength that can stand even when the winds rage. Because no matter how dark the night, there is still a reason to hope. There is no denying that life can be overwhelmingly hard. People lose jobs, families fall apart, sickness visits our homes, and sometimes it feels as though the whole world is pressing in on us. It's during these seasons that the human spirit is most tempted to give up or give in. But before we can ever talk about staying positive, we must first face the reality of pain, because pretending everything is fine when it's not doesn't heal the soul. In fact, denial only delays the process of healing. Real strength begins when we have the courage to say, yes, this hurts. Yes, this is difficult. And no, I don't have all the answers right now. There is a kind of false positivity that tries to sweep pain under the rug, hoping that smiling wide enough will make the ache disappear. But deep down, we all know that isn't how it works. Pain unspoken becomes pain buried, and pain buried becomes bitterness. Staying positive isn't about pretending bad things don't happen. It's about learning to walk through them with clarity, with faith, and with purpose. Acknowledging pain is not weakness. It is a sign that your heart is still beating, that you are still alive, that you still care. It's only when we bring our wounds out into the light that they can truly begin to heal. There's a story of a man who lost everything. His family, his health, his wealth, and his friends told him it must be his fault. They thought that somehow pain was a punishment. But that man, instead of denying his suffering, cried out and asked the deepest questions of life. He didn't fake a smile. He didn't mask his grief. And in time, even in his raw honesty, he found strength again. This is what we must remember. We are not alone in our struggle. Others have walked the path before us, and many are walking it now. The road to healing always begins with truth. And the truth is, it's okay to not be okay for a while. There is no shame in admitting that life has knocked you down. In fact, that admission is often the very first step toward rising again, because when you are honest about your pain, you open the door to compassion. You allow others to stand with you. You make room for comfort, for healing, for hope. We cannot heal from what we refuse to face. But when we choose to be real, to be vulnerable, to be human, that's when something beautiful begins to happen. The heart may be broken, but it is also open. And a heart that is open can be filled again with strength, with peace, and yes, even with joy. Not a fake joy, not a fragile happiness, but a deep, enduring joy that can endure even in the darkest of times. That is where true positivity begins. Not in denial of pain, but in the brave act of facing it with hope in your heart. Feelings come and go. One moment we may feel hopeful, the next we're sinking under the weight of worry. That's the nature of emotions. They are real, but they are not always reliable. If we anchor our lives to feelings, we will be tossed by every storm that passes through. But if we anchor ourselves to faith, we find a solid ground that does not move, even when the winds howl and the waves crash. Faith is not blind optimism. It's not pretending everything is fine. Faith is the quiet, steady trust in something greater than ourselves. It is the decision to believe that even when we cannot see the way forward, there is a purpose, there is a plan, and we are not alone. Faith does not promise a life without hardship. It never says we will avoid the fire, but it does promise that we will not walk through the fire alone. When everything else falls away, when the job is lost, when the diagnosis comes, when people disappoint or betray us, faith remains. It becomes the foundation on which we rebuild, because faith is not rooted in emotion, it is rooted in truth, and truth stands no matter how we feel. When life gets tough, our feelings may tell us to give up. They may whisper lies like, "You'll never get through this," or "You're not strong enough." But faith speaks louder. Faith declares, "You are not forgotten." Faith says, "This valley is not the end of your story." And if we listen closely, even in the silence, faith reminds us that darkness cannot last forever. The sun will rise again. There are times when we must choose to believe, even when we don't feel anything at all. That choice may not change the situation immediately, but it changes us. It gives us the strength to take one more step, to breathe through one more hour, to believe that we are being held together by a power greater than ourselves. Some days we will feel strong. Other days we won't feel anything at all. But that is why our foundation cannot be our feeling. They are too fragile. They shift too quickly. Our foundation must be faith. Faith in the one who holds the universe in his hands and still has room to hold us too. Staying positive in hard times isn't about chasing a feeling. It's about choosing to stand on what is unshakable. Emotions may rise and fall, but faith remains. And in that faith, we find the strength to keep going, not because we feel strong, but because we trust that we are being carried. That kind of trust does not come from the head alone. It comes from the soul. It is a quiet, deep knowing that we are seen, we are loved, and we are never walking this journey alone. Hope is one of the most powerful forces in the human soul, and yet it is often misunderstood. Many people think hope is a feeling that comes when everything is going well, when the skies are clear and the road ahead is smooth. But real hope is not born in easy times. It is forged in the fires of adversity. It is not the product of perfect conditions, but the decision to believe in something greater, even when everything around you is falling apart. Hope is not something that simply happens to you, it is something you choose. When life gets tough, when the weight of your circumstances feels too heavy to bear, that is when hope matters most. Not the shallow kind of hope that wishes for a good outcome, but the deep kind of hope that says, even if the outcome isn't what I expected, I will not give in to despair. Hope is the voice that says, this is not the end, when your heart is tempted to give up. It's the choice to believe that your story still has meaning, that your life still has purpose, even when the road ahead is hidden in fog. People often think that being positive means having all the answers or always wearing a smile. But true positivity, the kind that endures hardship, is grounded in hope. It is that quiet strength that rises up in your spirit when everything else is falling apart. It's what keeps you getting up each morning, what gives you the courage to try again, to love again, to dream again. Hope doesn't ignore reality. It faces it head on and chooses to believe that even this pain has a place in a greater purpose. Sometimes hope is loud. Sometimes it sings and celebrates. But other times it is a whisper in the dark, a flicker of light when everything feels cold and uncertain. And it's in those moments that hope proves its true power. Because if you can choose to hope in the middle of the storm, then no storm can ever defeat you. Circumstances will shift, troubles will come, but if your hope is rooted in something deeper, something eternal, then you will not be shaken. The truth is, you may not be able to control what happens to you. Life will surprise you, disappoint you, stretch you, but you can always choose your response. You can choose to believe that something good can still come out of this. You can choose to trust that the darkness will not last forever. You can choose to keep your eyes fixed, not on the pain of the moment, but on the promise of what lies beyond it. Hope is not weakness. Hope is not denial. Hope is the fierce and steady decision to keep moving forward when every voice around you says to turn back. And that decision, made day after day, can change everything. When hardship comes, it often tries to tell us who we are. It whispers lies that say, you're a failure, you're broken, you're not enough. But the truth is, trials do not define you. They do not write your identity. What they do, if you allow them, is refine you. Just as fire purifies gold, adversity reveals what is true, what is lasting, and what is strong within you. It burns away the unnecessary, the shallow, and the false, and it leaves behind something more honest, more resilient, more beautiful than before. It's easy to think that your struggle is a sign of weakness, that if life is hard, it must mean you've done something wrong or that you've somehow fallen short. But some of the strongest people you will ever meet have walked through valleys so deep, storms so fierce, and nights so long that the only explanation for their strength is that it was forged in the fire. They were not born strong. They became strong because they refused to let their pain be wasted, and you can do the same. The moment you stop asking, why is this happening to me, and begin asking, what can I learn from this, that is the moment you shift from being a victim to being a vessel shaped by hardship but not destroyed by it. You may have scars, but those scars can tell a story, not just of what you've lost, but of what you've survived. And survival is not weakness, it is proof that something within you is greater than what came against you. When you walk through hard seasons, you have a choice. You can let the pain define your future, or you can let it refine your character. You can let it harden your heart, or you can let it deepen your compassion. You can let it steal your joy, or you can let it teach you how to find joy in places you never expected. Often, the people who bring the most light into the world are the very ones who have walked through the deepest darkness. You are not your failure. You are not your loss. You are not your fear. You are not your mistake. What you are is someone who is being shaped, slowly and painfully, into someone stronger, wiser, and more full of grace than you were before. It may not feel like it now. It may feel like everything is being stripped away, but sometimes the greatest transformation happens when we are laid bare and we have nothing left to cling to but truth. The fire is not your identity, the fire is your furnace. And what comes out of the furnace, when the time is right, is not weaker than before, but stronger, more refined, and more radiant. So hold on, even when it hurts, because your trial is not the end of your story. It may just be the beginning of your transformation. When life grows dark and heavy, the last thing we often feel like doing is giving thanks. Gratitude feels unnatural in pain, even unreasonable, but that is exactly where its power lies. Gratitude is not a reaction to ease or comfort. It is a deliberate response to life, even when life doesn't go the way we hoped. And when we choose gratitude in the midst of trouble, something inside us shifts. We begin to see not only what we've lost, but what we still have. We stop focusing on the door that closed and start noticing the windows still open. Gratitude doesn't ignore the pain, it acknowledges it, but it refuses to let pain have the final word. It lifts your eyes from the ground to the heavens. It takes your attention off what is missing and turns it to what remains. And often, what remains is more than enough to get you through. A kind word, a breath in your lungs, a friend who stays, a strength you didn't know you had. These things may seem small in the shadow of suffering, but they are seeds of hope, and when you water them with gratitude, they grow. You may not be able to change your circumstances right now. The storm may still be raging, but even in the storm, you can give thanks, not for the pain itself, but for the presence that carries you through it. Not for the loss, but for the love that still lingers. Not for the questions, but for the quiet courage to keep going in the face of them. Gratitude is not about pretending everything is okay. It's about saying, even though it's not, I will still choose to see the good. This choice is not always easy. It may feel forced at first, but the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Gratitude becomes a lens that helps you see beauty in the ashes, light in the shadows, meaning in the mess. It doesn't take away the pain, but it gives you something stronger than pain: perspective. And that perspective can become a lifeline when the waves threaten to pull you under. There is always something to be thankful for, even in the hardest seasons. The sunrise that comes after a sleepless night, the quiet moment when your soul catches its breath, the peace that comes not because everything is perfect, but because you chose to trust anyway. These are treasures hidden in the darkness, and gratitude helps you find them. So when life is tough, don't wait for everything to get better before you give thanks. Start now. Thankfulness is not a reward for when things improve. It is a weapon for when they don't. It is a light in the dark, a defiant declaration that says, "This pain will not break me. I still see beauty. I still have reason to hope." And that choice, made again and again, will not only keep your heart alive, it will keep it soft, open, and ready to heal. When life shakes us, when everything we thought was secure begins to slip through our fingers, we are faced with a question that demands an answer. What am I really standing on? If your foundation is built on things that change, success, health, relationships, finances, then you will always live in fear, because all those things can be taken in a moment. But when your hope is built on something eternal, something that cannot be shaken, then even in the middle of the storm, you can stand. Temporary problems, no matter how big they feel, are just that, temporary. They come and in time they go, but what is eternal remains. That's why it matters where you place your trust. If your joy depends on everything going right, then your peace will rise and fall with every wave. But if your peace is rooted in truth that does not change, then you can face anything with confidence. You can say, "This hurts, but it will not break me. This is not the end. This is only a chapter, not the whole book." We live in a world obsessed with the moment. How things look, how things feel, how things are going right now. But life is bigger than a moment. It's deeper than a season. And when your soul is anchored in something beyond what your eyes can see, you begin to live with a different kind of strength. You don't deny your pain. You don't ignore your questions, but you hold on to a greater truth. A truth that says you are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not fighting this battle alone. There is a promise that endures through every trial, a love that holds firm through every loss. When you build your life on that kind of foundation, you may still feel the storm, but you will not be moved. You may cry, you may fall, you may wonder how you'll make it, but you will rise again, not because of your own strength, but because of the one who holds you. That kind of hope is not based on what you see. It is based on what you know deep in your spirit, that even when the world shakes, you are standing on a rock that cannot be moved. So when life gets tough, remind yourself, these problems are real, but they are not forever. This pain is deep, but it will not last. And beyond it all, there is a truth that does not change. You were made with purpose. You are being carried with love, and your story is not over. Keep your eyes fixed not on what is fading, but on what is eternal. Let that be your anchor. Let that be your light. Let that be your reason to keep going. When everything around you says give up, that still, strong voice says, stand firm. I'm not done with you yet. In the end, life will not always be easy. There will be moments that test your strength, challenge your peace, and stretch your faith. But within every hardship lies the opportunity to grow, to rise, and to become more than you ever thought possible. Staying positive when life gets tough is not about ignoring pain or pretending all is well. It is about choosing to face the storm with courage, to anchor your soul in something unshakable, and to believe that your trial has a purpose beyond what you can see. Choose honesty over denial. Choose faith over fleeting emotions. Choose hope even when nothing makes sense. Let your trials refine you, not define you. Find gratitude in the small, quiet blessings that remain. And above all, keep your heart anchored in what is eternal, because in doing so you will find a strength that no storm can shake, and a peace that passes all understanding. Thank you for walking this journey with me. May you carry these words with you in the days to come. Stay strong, keep believing, and never lose sight of the light that still shines within you. Good luck on your journey, and may hope lead you forward with every step.